I got a call from Bill Asher, who was the producer of Bewitched, and who was the husband of Elizabeth Montgomery. And he said, "Would you come meet me?" I said, "Sure." So I went over. He said, I'm producing and directing some of the shows, but I'm not going to produce it anymore. I'd like you to produce it." I said, "Really?" He said, "Sure, come on over. The seat is yours."
You'd expect the marriage of Samantha and Darrin Stephens to be the most magical in television history, and for millions of viewers it was. Their on-screen chemistry on Bewitched was the perfect blend of supernatural charm and mortal devotion, a ratings titan that defined an era. But behind the scenes, a heartbreaking drama was unfolding, one far removed from the pristine set of 1164 Morning Glory Circle. The official story of why actor Dick York, the original Darrin, suddenly vanished from the show is well known, a tragic career-ending back injury. While that story is true, it conceals a far more complicated and personal conflict that was the real catalyst for his departure. The agony behind the magic. The story of Dick York's downfall doesn't begin on the magical set of Bewitched, but a full 5 years earlier, under the harsh sun of a 1959 movie location. While filming the western They Came to Cordura alongside Hollywood legend Gary Cooper, York was part of a scene requiring him to propel a railroad handcar. In a single jarring moment that would redefine the rest of his life, the director yelled "cut," but one of the other actors failed to let go of the handle. Suddenly, York was lifting the man's entire 180-pound weight, and the muscles along his back simply gave way. It wasn't a simple strain. It was catastrophic, permanent injury that triggered a degenerative spine condition, sentencing him to a future of relentless, debilitating pain. By the time he was cast as Darrin Stephens, York was already a man in constant agony. His suffering was an open secret on the Bewitched set, a constant, oppressive presence that the production had to navigate daily. The crew, in an act of compassion, constructed a special slanted board for him to lean against between takes, a silent testament to both his incredible determination to work and his profound physical limitations. But his pain was not just a private battle, it became an active, disruptive force on the show. The need for accommodations inevitably led to production delays and added stress for everyone involved. His physical crisis was slowly becoming a professional one, creating a fertile ground for friction long before any personal issues came to a head. Years later, York would describe the moment that derailed his life with visceral detail. Quote, "The muscles along the right side of my back tore. They just snapped and let loose, and that was the start of it all." The man America welcomed into their homes each week as the flustered but loving husband was, in reality, fighting a war within his own body, one that was about to have devastating consequences. The uncrowned queen of Morning Glory Circle. While Dick York was the relatable mortal anchor of Bewitched, there was no question who the true center of its universe was. Elizabeth Montgomery, with her effortless charm and impeccable comedic timing, was not just the star of the show, she was, by many accounts, the boss on that set. Her influence was solidified by her marriage to William Asher, the show's primary director and eventual full-time producer. This created a unique power dynamic where the star's comfort and happiness were inextricably linked to the head of production, making her personal feelings a matter of professional policy. In contrast to her warm public persona, Montgomery was known to be a deeply private person who rarely socialized with coworkers off-set, creating an enigmatic aura that made the behind-the-scenes turmoil even more hidden from public view. The on-screen chemistry she shared with Dick York was undeniable, the very heart of the show's success. But the first hints of a more complicated off-screen reality began to surface in whispers and biographies, most notably from author Herbie J. Pilato, who noted that York was completely smitten with his co-star. This one-sided affection would become a critical piece of the puzzle. But not everyone on set was aligned with Montgomery's perspective. Agnes Moorehead, who played the formidable Endora, shared a famously antagonistic relationship with Darrin on screen. But in reality, she and Dick York were dear friends. Her loyalty to York was fierce, and it created a clear division on set. Moorehead's fury over his eventual departure suggests that Montgomery's feelings were not universally shared, hinting at a deep and complex political landscape behind the magic. While Montgomery and York's on-screen relationship was idyllic, the dynamic with her mother-in-law, Endora, was famously contentious. Moorehead's bold declaration, made in front of the entire cast, was a stunning act of defiance. It was a clear signal that the decision to replace York was not a simple, unified choice. A secret breaking point. As the seasons wore on, the physical toll on Dick York became impossible to ignore. His condition had worsened significantly, and to cope with the searing pain, he had grown dependent on a cocktail of prescribed painkillers, hiding a full-blown addiction from his colleagues in the public. The combination of chronic agony and medication began to affect his work, making it difficult to memorize lines and perform the physical comedy that had made his Darrin so beloved. The show was increasingly written around his disability, with scripts frequently placing Darrin in a couch or bed for entire episodes to accommodate his inability to stand. The situation was becoming unsustainable. The breaking point came during the filming of the 5th season episode Daddy Does His Thing. York arrived on set gravely ill, battling a 105-degree fever and shaking with chills despite the summer heat. While filming a scene high atop a platform, the flickering lights caused him to have a seizure. He collapsed violently, waking up on the floor in the arms of the crew, having bitten a large hole in his tongue. He was rushed to the hospital, and it was clear to everyone he could not continue. This dramatic and very public medical emergency became the official story for his departure. From his hospital bed, York had a quiet, compassionate conversation with director William Asher. Recognizing the impossibility of his situation, he mutually agreed to leave the show to focus on his recovery. It was a tragic but understandable end, a narrative that generated sympathy for York and allowed the show to move forward. The collapse, while a genuine crisis, also provided a convenient and unimpeachable exit ramp for the production, allowing them to resolve a growing on-set problem in a way that protected everyone's public image. It was the perfect, tragic cover story. The final day on set was a blur of pain and sickness that York would later struggle to recall. Quote, "I was too sick to go on. I had a temperature of 105, full of strong antibiotics, for almost 10 days. I went to work that day, but I was sick." The producer's Bombshell. We've got to get rid of him. In 1966, for the show's 3rd season and transition to color, William Froug was brought in as the new producer. A veteran of shows like Gilligan's Island and The Twilight Zone, Froug was a compromise candidate, an outsider who was not part of the original Bewitched inner circle. This unique position gave him an unfiltered, ground-level view of the show's internal dynamics. He walked into his very first production meeting with Elizabeth Montgomery, William Asher, and executive producer Harry Ackerman, expecting to discuss scripts, budgets, and schedules. Instead, he was met with a bombshell that immediately revealed the true crisis facing the show. Froug, brand new and completely unaware of the backstage turmoil, was stunned when the first and most adamant point of discussion came directly from the show's star. It was a simple, shocking demand regarding her leading man. When a confused Froug later pulled Asher aside to ask who him was, the director's response was blunt and unequivocal. "Dick York. Liz can't stand him." Froug soon came to his own conclusion about the reason for her animosity. He believed that Dick York was madly in love with Liz. He observed York off camera, lying on his backboard between scenes, staring at Montgomery with a longing, puppy-dog infatuation that she found deeply unsettling. For Montgomery, a private woman who was also the undisputed boss, this unwanted adoration from a coworker created an untenable and deeply uncomfortable working environment. The two narratives, York's tragic health decline and Montgomery's personal discomfort, were not separate issues. They were tragically intertwined. It's highly plausible that York's constant pain and the powerful medications he was taking lowered his professional inhibitions, perhaps making an infatuation more obvious and his behavior more difficult for Montgomery to endure. Now it's time to hear from you. What was the most surprising part of this story? Let us know in the comments section below.